Shall we go just in the order of the running sheet here? I think so. Kyle, you have a presentation for us?
Absolutely.
We'd love to hear it. Come on up.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I've enjoyed getting to hear a little bit about some of the different things that people are working on, and since we're in the coveted last spot of the day, we'll try and keep this efficient and keep cocktail hour in sight. So once again, it's great to be here. Thank you all for having me. Wanted to just talk a little bit about Equibase and let you guys know what we do here in the U.S. Really, try and maybe give a little bit clearer picture of some of the things where we're trying to innovate. And I've heard that word several times today. I've been in meetings throughout my career where you hear innovate over and over again, and if I had a nickel for every time I've heard it, I would have a lot of nickels. But I do want to make a point that a lot of the things and the improvements that we make are all really incremental in nature, and so we'll talk through a little bit of that and some of the things that we're doing here. So just a little bit about my background. Unlike a lot of you, I have not spent my entire career in the racing industry. I'm a longtime racing fan, but have spent most of my career in digital sports media, working for the likes of ESPN, for Yahoo Sports, for Fox Sports, and doing things like fantasy games. And then most recently, the last 4 or 5 years, I worked with Sport Radar, where we distributed sports betting data around the world. No horse racing data, but sports betting data around the world for both all the largest bookmakers, as well as distributing data to a lot of the large media players to help make their broadcast more entertaining and more enriching. And I think there are a lot of things that I can bring from those experiences to help continue to improve the presentation of the sport and to help drive additional betting. So first, we're going to go back to 1992. I'll click to the next slide. Which one are we on here? There we go. So we'll go back to 1992. This gentleman on the left was one of the most memorable bosses that I've had, David Hill, a fine Australian and a heck of a character. In 1992, when he was working for Sky Sports as a producer, he put the score strip, the score bug, which is now ubiquitous for any sporting event you watch. You turn it on, you instantly know the score. When I was a kid growing up, you turn on a baseball game, you have to sit and wait for a commercial to see the score, right? And so just the expectations have changed. But, David, the story he tells, whether it's true or not, I don't know, but the story he tells is that when he first put it up, his boss told him he was going to be fired if he didn't take it down. He left it up, and we're still looking at, very similar derivations today. That said, not all of his ideas were great ones. This is the Fox track, also known as the glowing puck, that lasted in the NHL from 1996 to 98, and was much derided and definitely not something that stuck around that long. Although I think it's starting to make a reemergence as the technology is catching up. And then you see the 1st and 10 line, which is ubiquitous in American football, and really, if it's missing, it's something that's really difficult for people to watch. Moving on to Major League Baseball, I think that's a sport that has done a couple of things. One is they've done an outstanding job in really branding and integrating statistical information throughout their broadcast. This was from just the other night during the World Series, and as you can see, it's a very important part of how they present the game, how they make it entertaining to a younger audience, and how they really tell the story and help people understand exactly what's going on. And I think there are a number of things that we can do in racing to make sure that whether it's at the track, whether it's watching on an ADW, whether it's watching on FanDuel TV, you want to be able to really understand what you're seeing and get that context. So right after a race happens, maybe there's an instant speed figure. How do we start to show animations that really show where trouble happens? And so we think there are a lot of things that we can do to really just use data to enrich what the experience looks like. This is just one more example, obviously, with Live Golf, where they have really leaned into the use of statistics and graphics to try and make that a much more compelling experience. And so certainly is something that, in some cases these things are optional. In other cases, these are an integrated part of the broadcast. And so we really think that this is directionally an important thing for us to think about, to help make horse racing entertaining to the widest possible audience, and obviously use that to drive handle. So as far as the data collection that we do at Equibase, we work with a number of different partners, Total Performance Data, first among them, and GMAX that we work with for hardware, and then I'll also talk a little bit about some AI work that our partners at Promana Labs are doing that we've seen a lot of progress on, and we're happy to see the direction that is going. So, this is sort of the partner ecosystem that we use to track and create graphics at now 28 tracks across the U.S., 25 thoroughbred tracks, and then 3 standardbred tracks. So this represents 75% of the North American handle. Certainly something we're looking to continue to grow and provide both enhanced data collection, enhanced timing, and really try and do a much better job and sort of catch up with maybe some of the rest of the sports world with respect to the data that we collect, the accuracy of that data, and then how we use that to enhance the experience. So here's a good example. This is something that debuted at Pimlico that we worked on with our partners at Total Performance Data. As you can see the box there on the bottom left, that's a live updating win percentage, and so that is essentially the same data that provides live in-running odds in the markets where we're doing that. UK is a great example, and so these are the things that just make make racing more entertaining, possibly more easier to understand for the fan. If you've got a horse that is a closer, but he's certainly not leading the race at the moment, a lot of people, casual fans, maybe aren't going to understand that they still have a really good chance. This helps to bridge that gap. This is also just to illustrate some of the work we're doing from a computer vision standpoint to make sure that what the data that we're getting from the GPS also matches data that we're getting from the cameras, just to provide one additional layer of accuracy. This is something we're testing right now and expect to be rolling out in the early part of next year. And so we're excited about what that's going to do with respect to deeper, more accurate data, designing better ways to consume that data, and then helping us to attract new fans. So to go a little more in depth on some of the things that we're doing from a technology standpoint, the picture you see there is a gate device that we're running at several tracks right now. There was a recent article about Canterbury talking about eliminating run-up completely, but depending on how that evolves, we're going to be ready either way. So this is obviously a great way to initiate timing when the run-up has been eliminated, but we're also working to make sure that where there are run-ups, we do a very good job of capturing the length and the speed of that run-up, and so we can understand, really kind of provide handicappers better information and really have a more apples-to-apples comparison. We're also working on the next generation of GPS technology, RTK, which is essentially just, instead of just satellite receivers that we're using, it's satellites and a base station that we triangulate between. Right now, the system that we're using has 2 different transponders that sit on either side of the horse that are inside the saddle towel. As we're testing those, we're sort of trying to understand whether we can do it with a single tracker, whether we need double trackers to provide the additional resolution, but we're very encouraged that that's going to open up a number of other views into the data, things like animation to understand how wide horses are from the rail. This is especially challenging when you've got turf rails that are moving from day to day, and so we can make sure that we're really providing an accurate picture of what's going on. And then I mentioned the computer vision a bit earlier. So then, as far as just how we express this data, there are lots of different ways that we do it, and certainly I'm happy to share the stage with a couple of partners that we provide data to, and we help provide the underpinnings of what helps them build and provide the great experiences that they do. This is an example of a stride length and frequency graphic that we were showing at Horseshoe Indianapolis, which basically just is another view on some of the data that we capture at the race. And these are things that can be displayed at the racetrack. These can be displayed on broadcast. And then there are lots of other things that we can do with that data as well. Here's an example of the same data, but this is within our Race Lens handicapping product that gives you a much more granular breakdown of what that stride data looks like, as well as miles per hour. And over time, I think we'll be able to use this to provide handicappers a much better view of past performances. And then obviously, too, we spend a lot of time thinking about what are the products that we or our partners can create to address more casual handicappers. And this is the example of what we're doing with Promana Labs. I think the thing I like the most about it is when you pick up a past performance and you're trying to figure out exactly what you should be taking away, and this gives you really kind of more of a written narrative version of what that is like. So as if you were standing with an ambassador at the track who's helping you figure out how to bet. We do this for every race in North America. And so it's, if nothing else, even if you don't necessarily agree with some of the things we're pointing out, it gives you a great place in your own handicapping to start thinking about, hey, this is how we can approach this race. And then the last thing I'll touch on is that there are just a myriad of uses for this data. We're selling this data to professional handicappers. It's been interesting that we've also had a number of professional sports bettors who haven't been horse players who are now interested in this data to help them get into betting on our sport. Obviously, broadcast partners, ADW partners, we want to work very closely with to enhance those experiences to help grow the sport. In-running wagering and fixed odds are certainly things that I also share the belief that have the ability to coexist here in the U.S. when they're done the right way, and I think that will open a lot of opportunities to help us draft on the growth of sports betting in the U.S. in general. And then lastly, there's obviously been a lot of talk about training, health, and safety. We're doing a lot of work to start thinking about how do we automatically capture workout data, how do we make sure that we can use that data alongside the stride length data, et cetera, to be able to sort of draw insights and potentially flag where there are issues. And it's our hope that some of these devices essentially just become a part of the TAC, and this is just the essential piece of how we run our races. So that's what I wanted to share today. But thank you all very much, and certainly happy to answer any questions you may have.
Excellent. Very good.
Yeah, great.
Can I ask the tough one? Yeah, you can ask the tough
I'll ask the
question.
Let's start with a tough one.
We'll do the tough one. So I'm a big Racelands fan. We work with Rhonda and the team on our podcast, and I think it's a great product. And I definitely think there's clearly a place for proprietary products that punters, bettors buy. But on a more basic level, in terms of the growth of the sport, I'm a big believer that racing, unlike many sports, has even just very basic data paywalled and protected, and I think it limits the sport. When you think, John made some great points before about how a young person looks at our sport versus somebody else, and I feel like the idea that we're going to get the young people to learn the way that we did, or look at a paper form, or even look at an old school past performance on a computer, I think it's like borderline farcical, and I think that the ability of having data that was readily available to put in the hands of young app makers and programmers without having to have Equibase as a business partner from day one, I feel like that could fuel interest and growth in the sport. What is your position on the idea of having free basic data potentially available to a wide audience the way that is in the other sports you grew up in and we're just talking about?
Absolutely. And so, there are a few things I would say. First, I was expecting this question from Pat Cummings. So,
we've heard enough from him.
But no, look, it's a great point, and I do think that it's important that we make a lot of data free for people, especially people who are new to the sport, to be able to understand it, understand how to handicap it, how to think about things. And so, for example, the stat lines information that we were just looking at from Promana Labs, that's free information, right? Yep. A lot of our ADW partners we work with, if you place a bet, as small as a straight 10-cent superfecta, you can get access to past performances. So I don't think there's that high of a bar to get access to past performances. That said, we've got to do a better job of getting people excited about this sport, because it is an absolutely fascinating thing to be a part of, and certainly as someone who's somewhat new to the industry, I've just learned a tremendous amount about the bloodstock side and 100 other things that just make this a really fascinating thing to be a part of. And so I think we need to figure out how do we foster that, how do we make that learning curve less steep. The other thing I will say too is it's really expensive to collect this data. We have over 100 chart callers working for Equibase covering essentially every race in North America. And that doesn't even include the people we have working on the technology side, right? And so that has to, we have to figure out how do we make sure that works as well. And so, that's where a sport like Major League Baseball has a lot of, broadcast contracts that they're able to leverage and sort of subsidize a lot of that data collection. And so I think that's where, over time, we need to think about how do we do better at that as well.
I'd love to suggest, and I don't think it's a hyperbole to say, personally, I think you'll recoup it on the betting dollar in terms of getting a whole generation of people who are closed off to this, maybe open to it. That's just my hope as somebody who sees a bright future for our sport to
No, and
not only
listen,
survive, but thrive.
our primary objective is what can we do to help grow the sport, and so that's the lens that we look at, race lens that we look through everything.
I love it.
I have plenty more questions as well, but I know we have one down here.
Yes, one question. Traditionally, we have always presented all this kind of data in tables and diagrams. And we get more and more data. I raised the question of personalization, i.e. that I get the information on the level that I want to have it. That's one thing. But another thing is, of course, AI, i.e. That I prompt a question and I get the answer that I would like to have. And I haven't seen so much of it in our business yet. Do you think it will come?
It will definitely come, right? I think what we've done with Promana Labs is a good starting place where it's more structured data query rather than I wouldn't characterize it as necessarily machine learning AI, so it's really an iterative process, but I think that's something that is, when I think about the investments we're making in the future, that's certainly a part of what we're thinking about.
Let's move on to Nathan's. We'll have more time for a discussion potentially at the end of the presentations, but we'll thank you for the time being, and we'll move on to Nathan. Nathan from JockeyCam, one of our own, co-founder of JockeyCam, over from England, now based over here, aren't you, Nathan? I think you are, aren't you?
I am. I live here, yeah, it's great, yeah. So
we lost the good egg from the UK
thank you, bud. Thank
over here to America, but take it away, Nathan.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for your time. And it's great, it's a pleasure to be here and discuss two of my favourite things, which is horse racing and fan engagement. I see a few familiar faces here, some of you from across the pond, and for those of you that don't know me, my name is Nathan Horrocks. I'm a former professional jockey and now co-founder of Equine Productions and JockeyCam. Sorry, Josh. In 2012, when we first started on this journey, our goal was to show horse racing in a new way that would engage and inspire audiences within and outside of the sport. From award-winning documentaries to TV commercials and features, innovative filming techniques and getting people's attention was always at the forefront of our minds. Here is an example of some of those things I'm going to be discussing and the technology using to get more eyeballs on our sport.
Do you think you have the courage to ride a half-ton thoroughbred? JockeyCam taking you right into the action.
This is fabulous because you can get into his mind and wonder what he's thinking.
Coming in. And they're off. There's the roar from the crowd at the top of the stretch, and he's in cruise control. The only thing you're missing right now is dirt flying in your face.
And Fox's tails burst through on the far side.
Got my heart pumping for the weekend ahead. Yeah. Absolutely. Over the years, sports fans have always had the desire to see and experience the perspective of their favourite athletes. And there has been many attempts along the way. This guy had all the angles covered. and only Steve McQueen could make this setup look cool. But what we wanted to create was something that could be used on a regular basis, something that could be that could have the capability to transmit live images for broadcast and streaming. In order to do that, the camera needed to be light, it needed to be safe, and it also needed to be easy for the rider to wear. What we created was a 6-ounce safety-approved live broadcast camera that could put audiences amongst the action. In the US today, we now deliver 370+ live race days, giving channels like FanDuel TV, NBC Sports, the capability of utilising these POV images. This has also led us into other sports like rugby with our RefCam, motorsport, and just recently golf with our new CaddyCam. So how is it used and what are the benefits? One way is live, picture-in-picture or second screen, which I will come on to later. And then the other is post-race analysis. This gives broadcasters the ability to show audiences the narrative of how a race is won or lost, but it also helps the audiences understand what it's like to control these athletes making those split-second decisions. We also make these pictures available to the stewards, to the jockeys, trainers, coaches and owners for their own analysis, proving that this technology is very valuable, a valuable tool to the rest of the sport. Here's an example from our friends at FanDuel TV.
SoCam and the JockeyCam, bottom right-hand corner. This will be a great view. Let's roll it and see it from JJ's perspective. I mean, he's all dressed up with nowhere to go. He's just sitting there waiting for a seam, and there's nothing in front of him. Not only that, they're going to start coming back into him. They're closing in from the outside. Simon, great ride from Juan.
Yeah, and look at the bottom right-hand screen. If that rail doesn't drop away there, that temporary rail, I don't think he wins this race. We've seen so many races over the years at Del Mar 1 with this move.
Yeah, a great example there from FanDuel TV. They utilise this, this analysis quite a lot, and it's great they've been working with those guys this year. We heard earlier Kyle talking about how we've been bringing data to our screens, and what we've been doing recently is working with GMAX and TPD to give us more data on screen, to give our fans a little bit more insight into and how to ride a race. You know, we've got speed here, we've got speed and position, but we're also implementing the percentage chance of our horse can win, which is something that I'm really excited about taking into the future of our sport. Social media, we all have it in our lives, whether we like it or not, but on screen you can see a few examples of many of the comments that we get from when we share JockeyCam replays. Some of the comments we get are great, and as you can see on screen here, the ones I appreciate, being a former jockey, is the comments about the skill set of the rider. What we also like to do is try and raise the profile of jockeys, and we will continue to do that. It's something that I am very, very passionate about. We also found when sharing JockeyCam replays that there was a 297% uplift in viewing figures on social media compared to a normal race replay. So there definitely is an audience out there for this type of content. Now then, we released our TikTok channel a few months ago, and I'm sure there's many TikTokers in here in the room, and if you're not a TikToker, you should be and following us. But what we did when we first released our TikTok channel, we put a clip from when we first started the company in 2015, and this clip reached 1.9 million views in only a few days, and this is an example of it now.
Can I go? You know. Can I get up? No. Right. Yeah, go on. Whew. Okay. Yeah.
Loose horse, what's the trouble, isn't it?
Yeah. Never mind. Thanks for the shout, lads. I'll go grab one of these loose horses. Here, give us one, I had. Oh, it's my lad. Hey, Benny. Whoa, pal. Hey, buddy. Hey. What's up? Sorry about that. All right. Not too bad, was it?
Yeah, a great example there of the bravery of our athletes, but also the love that our human athletes give their equine partners. Certainly something we wouldn't have captured without these POV cameras. Second screen, I mentioned it earlier. I'm a huge Formula One fan. I have been for years, long before Drive to Survive brought F1 to the mass market. Unfortunately, I don't have time or the money to go, but every time there's a Formula One race, I can be a digital fan like millions of others around the world. Every time there's a race on, I can be on the app, I can watch any of the angles that are on the F1 app, I can watch features, interviews, but I can also choose any of the angles that the F1 app gives us, which is what we're wanting to do moving forward. Okay, Josh. Yeah, so we can use things like, big screen TVs and also on screen here, like we see here.
Princess closing on the outside. Pizza Bianca's coming on through too. It's a wild finish here. Also coming is Hardy. Who's it gonna be? Pizza Bianca gives Christophe Clement his first Breeders' Cup. And then it was Bolivar, followed by Hot.
I'm sure we can all agree, for those people that weren't lucky enough to be at the Breeders' Cup this weekend, sitting at home, they could, watch the view from the horse that they bet on going forward. I mentioned it earlier about storytelling and Drive to Survive. What we found with what Drive to Survive has done for the sport of Formula One is the fact that they brought it to the mass market is the fact that they've been using storytelling to get reach new audiences. Last year, Equine Productions created a 4-part documentary series with Amazon Prime following trainer Andrew Baldwin throughout a racing season. What we were keen to do was kind of lift the curtain on the sport that we're involved with and give audiences a real insight into how our sport works, but more importantly, the love and care that our equine athletes receive, and also showing the characters that work within it. Here's a clip from episode 4, which shows the importance of having access and collaboration from the sport, which will help filmmakers tell better stories.
The 1.25 mile start, and they're off for the Golden Gates handicap. 1 or 2 riders really driving their mounts along. Frankie Dettori wants to get really handy on King Frankel, and Fox's Tails in the hands of Oisin Murphy, the back marker.
It was really rough in front of me. I ended up going back to the fence.
It was a very, very nervous moment. We sat stone cold last.
Towards the rear, Irish Legend, and lastly, Fox's Tails.
Oisin's a racing animal. He has an ability to really enjoy the moment. He loves being in a race. Time slows down for him. He can see things happening.
We're going at 40 miles an hour. I can't afford to second guess. It has to be split second, and I have to be decisive and believe in myself. So I just said, it's going to open up in the straight and just let him go. When I gave him the hurry up, he really took off.
Fox's Tails will go for a run up the far side for an Irish Legend. Fantastic. Fox comes back to the field. King Frankel at Visualization, challenging down the outside. Visualization doing well, and Fox's Tails has burst through on the far side. Oisin Murphy is clear on the far side. Visualization, then King Frankel, and Irish Legend. Fox's Tails now veering violently left-handed, but now clear by 3 lengths, and Fox's Tails goes on to win. And Oisin Murphy will be the leading rider at Royal Ascot 2021.
Wow, what a ride by Oisin, and what late drama as well. Oisin manages to get him past the post in first place, and he is the leading rider here at Royal Ascot.
Yeah, definitely one of my favourite moments creating that 4-part documentary series that we created with Amazon Prime. Amazon Prime were actually very impressed with the click-through rate of this series that we created, and what that basically means, anybody that did click on episode 1 stayed with it all the way through to episode 4. So, and they're very interested to see where we're going to be going within that space. Something else that we've been creating over the last 18 months is the JockeyCam VR experience. Being a former jockey, I've always wanted to help audiences understand the thrill of riding in a race and to give them something that was fully immersive and authentic. In order to do that, we needed to utilise 360-degree technology. Unfortunately, these 360-degree cameras are too big and heavy for jockeys to use in a real race. So what we had to do with our 10 years experience of being content providers was recreate a race using real horses and real jockeys. And here is an example of that.
We're excited to be here at Santa Anita Park.
And they're off. They continue down the back straight here. The big crowd anticipating a big finish.
Ball left to jump. Now we'll start hearing some speed.
They're inside the 3 now as the pace is building all the time.
Lady Noguez looking for room on the far outside.
Wonderful side noses ahead.
Finishing strongly on the outside.
But it's the 7-year-old to win the Coral Welsh Grand National.
Yeah, I have to say it's very infectious watching people use that experience. And Nick and Becca are going to be here today, and feel free to have a go at that today and later on in the break. And also, it's going to be provided in the main room at main grandstand, sorry, at the Breeders' Cup on Friday and Saturday. Within those 18 months, what we've been doing is rolling this out around the racetracks. First, and the Breeders' Cup have been utilising it across many of the racetracks. And one thing that we did do this year was we had it at the Preakness this year, and over 1,500 people use this experience, which goes to show that it's, it is a very popular experience to use. But it doesn't stop there. We don't always have to bring people to the racing. We can take racing to the people, and well, that's what this technology has enabled us to do. We can also utilise this technology by taking it to trade shows, also other things like other sporting events, and also something that I am very passionate about, which is schools. This is a picture here from the school that my wife works at, and I took this to her local school, and half of these kids didn't even know what a jockey was, never mind what horse racing was. And as you can see on screen there was many thank you notes after that, and it really does engage a younger audience, which we were chatting about earlier. The younger generation are the customers of the future, and this tech definitely enables to show them the essence of our sport, and it certainly helps them become the fans of the future. We all have our own stories of how we fell in love with the sport. I hope the work that we do continues to inspire more people to invest their time and money into the future of our sport. We all have a responsibility to make sure that racing reaches a wider audience, has transparency, has better welfare, but we also use whatever tools it takes to make sure that we leave racing in a better place than we found it. Thank you for your time, and I hope you all have a great Breeders' Cup.
Yeah, I would have, I could sit and talk to you about fan engagement through TV. That's kind of my thing, and it's clearly very much your thing. I guess my question to you is, there's always a lot of comparisons, specifically more recently, about how horse racing can be more like Formula One in terms of, and you touched upon it there, in terms of what they can give to their audience and what viewing experience they can give. And one of those things that is talked about, the idea is kind of banded around about having the jockeys mic'd up so that they can talk to a base camp back at home. I mean, honestly, in the UK, maybe less so in America, you'll be able to tell me, but that idea has kind of been laughed at. Yet, we're surely not that far off that happening, are we? Like,
no.
Those sort of ideas, I am aware we have to be careful. Cars are not horses, horses are not cars. There's a big difference, and I think we do have to remember that. But at the same time, we're not scoffing at those ideas anymore. We're actually thinking they are coming. They're just coming a little slower than other sports.
Yeah, and it's something we're actually working on right now, and it's something we can provide. It's something I want to push forward. Transparency is key. If the fans don't trust us in our sport, they're not going to bet or buy tickets or come and watch our show. So we need more transparency, and sometimes it feels as though there's a big secret, like we've got a big secret to tell. So I think what we need to do is innovate and also give our audiences something that's entertaining to get more eyeballs on our sport.
I mean, it's just, again, I could talk to you for a long time, but we will have to move on. But can you imagine a time where you're watching a Breeders' Cup and you can hear the commentary between Aidan O'Brien and Ryan Moore in a race? I mean, you're laughing at it.
Oh,
but
in a great way.
It's, yeah. I genuinely believe you have to think it first, you have to drive towards it, and that's exactly what you're doing, and it's not as far away as some people may think. Hopefully, anyway. Nathan, thank you very much. We must move on.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, bud. Thank you, bud.
Stephen up next from FanDuel TV. Can you follow that? That was a pretty pro.
I don't have as many flashy videos as Nathan does, but it is a fantastic product, and we use it on our TV network, FanDuel TV. And I just like to say it's an honor to be here and be asked to present. I also think it's kind of ironic as well that we've got an Irishman to present before the cocktail bar opens. But, so I'm the only person standing in front of you on that, and I'll probably be in front of you at the bar as well too. So what I'm going to talk about today here really is what's been happening in FanDuel and FanDuel TV, particularly in FanDuel Racing. As you all may know, we work with a lot of you guys, and you guys supply fantastic content 24/7 to us to bring to customers across America. Traditionally, that's been in TVG, but in the past year in particular, we've really started to accelerate into FanDuel Racing. So, realize we need to get to the bar pretty quickly, so I'll try and cover the history of sports betting in America, which is only 5 years old, but we had a big challenge. TVG was fine. We've been operating under the Wire Act for over 20 years, close to 25 years online, but we wanted to bring racing inside the Sportsbook app. That was a huge problem for us. And when we look at trying to provide an experience, and an experience that will engage customers, we had to talk to over 30 different regulators. We had to get multiple licenses. You guys probably all deal with this in each of your individual districts. America, you know, it's the land of the free, home of the brave, but it's also 50 different countries who are extremely difficult to deal with. But we got there in the end, and we now have racing live inside the Sportsbook in over 15 states, and the Sportsbook app itself is in, we just went live in Kentucky, which reaches our 20th state. The issues that we're looking with racing in the US, as you've probably seen from all the industry news, like Sportsbook is booming over here. It's been legal for 5 years. We're capturing, and I thought the first presentation was really interesting about illegal gambling, but we're capturing and growing the market. We're taking people away from illegal operators, and we're also introducing it into a safe, in a safe, responsible gaming environment in the US. But when we spoke to Sportsbook customers and daily fantasy customers, which became very big in the mid-teens of 2000s, awareness within horse racing was extremely low. In fact, some of the customers who are Sportsbook customers who bet with us for the Kentucky Derby this time, 40% of them actually said they didn't even think horse racing was legal until they did it with us. A big challenge for us as well, and addressing the experience, is speaking to Sportsbook customers with a pari-mutuel product. So trying to bridge that gap. Odds move. You know, we've talked about it in terms of late odd changes earlier on today, but the customers are coming from an American odds experience, looking at horse racing lingo. Personally myself, I think you can't dumb it down too much, and we've tried in some of our products, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But people actually do enjoy, and if you try to get an American bettor to explain American odds to you, it doesn't make sense. Once it goes to minus odds, that makes no sense. Decimals is the way, but we're in America. You know, I think Kyle mentioned miles per hour, but we're probably all wondering about what it was in kilometers. So it's just different. But we're trying to balance that, of trying not to educate too much, but ensure that they get the same experience that they find on Sportsbook, particularly in the bets area, and I'll talk about that in a moment. And then, sorry, I jumped a little bit quick. Just Sportsbook as a whole, it's absolutely exploding. And FanDuel, we've obviously leveraged our Flutter partners across from Sportsbet, Paddy Power, Betfair, and Sky Bet to bring people over here. And we've taken a #1 lead in terms of revenue, and we're battling it out with DraftKings month on month. But just the vast amount of money that's being spent in that market. In some states, FanDuel customers, we have over double-digit percentage of over 21s in that particular state have accounts with us. So we're regularly hitting #1 in the Sportsbook app. And that's not the sports, #1 in the App Store app. That's not in sports section. That's overall. We're ahead of Meta occasionally on some days, for Super Bowl and stuff like that. So it's absolutely flying. And that was our challenge within the racing group, within FanDuel Racing and the legacy TVG team, is to bring racing into the Sportsbook app. So just quickly running through how we evolved the product and sort of brought it to life. Sorry. So we really tried to take a test and learn approach. We invested heavily in our research and analytics. We have 2 dedicated analysts, 2 dedicated researchers, and this started a long time ago, about 3 years ago, of how do we convert the betting experience into sportsbook, and like what's their expectations? Like, can we even say furlongs? Can we show fractional odds? This type of stuff. And what we learned. Sorry, I skipped forward a page there. Oh, need to go back. So what we tried to do was, one key thing was like education is key, but we can't force people and make them learn. We have to put it in the right place at the right time. And in fact, often by incentivizing through promotions and tooltips is the best way to get people through. So we're explaining different types of complicated bets, like superfectas. But these are also people coming from the sportsbook app. Like we make, I think on, like one of the main reasons we are #1 in terms of revenue on Super Bowl Sunday last year or 2 years ago, people were doing what you hear, same game parlays, bet builders in the UK and Ireland, and they're also called like same race multis over in Sportsbet in Australia. These are extremely complicated wagers to put in, like how many yards will Mahomes throw, how many run, how many touchdowns will there be, length of time of the national anthem. But to combine all these bets together as an experience is actually really difficult and complicated from an odds perspective. But we're having customers often on Super Bowl Sunday, like 50% of them are placing same game parlays or SGP plus. That's the same as imagine 50% of your customers doing superfectas or pick sixes. One thing that really resonates with this customer base is giving them informed betting decisions. So we talked a lot about the great data that Equibase and Kyle was talking about, is really bringing that to the fore. So instead of hiding it down at the bottom of a race page, putting it at the top, this helps them have more confidence in placing a bet. And that was one of the top resonating things in terms of when we spoke to customers. They loved the fact that they could get free tips. And then we took a refreshing approach of trying to simplify data of what a power rating is, what a speed data. Like customers from sportsbook world weren't so worried about that, so we tried a different approach on that. The #1 thing that within attracting new customers to racing, and one of the greatest assets that racing has, is video. Like Nathan showed it there earlier in terms of what he does and his team do, which is fantastic. But you know, through deals and partnerships with you guys, we've got effectively 100% video content of generally less than 2 minutes, which is a perfect time from a sports bettor. And we all know that's kind of where horse racing sits. And it's great to have that content, and it's really resonating in the American audience. And finally, just at the bottom, there was some comments about like how do we evolve data to make it easier for customers to understand, or changes in prices. There's a great phrase in terms of the product world of like, don't make someone think. One of the things we've introduced on our bet slip, and also when you go to the My Bets experience, both in TVG and FanDuel Racing, is it just tells you what you're going to win. Now, there's some different bet types you can't do that, but from a sports betting customer, they're coming from a world of placing an SGP of 5 or 6 different combinations. They just want to see $10 wins me $1,200. They're not interested in like, well, this is plus 300 and this is plus 1,400 and so on and so forth. So we try to bridge that gap so that when someone places a bet, they have a potential payout. When they go to My Bets and it's a pick 4 on the last leg, you don't have to go somewhere else to find what the will pays are. It's right there in the bet slip for you. So focusing on simplicity was the big challenge for us coming into Kentucky Derby. We launched FanDuel Racing 2 years ago as a separate app, but then we got through all the legal challenges, and we had great partnerships with all the horse racing providers, but in particular with Churchill Downs and United Tote. We were able to get the Kentucky Derby. And we launched racing inside the sportsbook as a single account and wallet. And this is a simple experience for a customer, which is frictionless. They don't have to go and set up a separate account. They can play sports betting and horse racing. For some companies or some jurisdictions around the world, this is straightforward. For the US, it was not. We're still the only company who has it in the US at the moment. I'm sure it'll follow along. But effectively, what we tried to do on Kentucky Derby Day this year, or what we did, fast fingers here. On the left-hand side, You open up the Sportsbook app. Again, this is an app which has millions of customers betting on it each weekend. You open up, the Kentucky Derby sitting front and center, you tap on it, and you then go onto the race page. It gives you rich, simplified, detailed information with tips, and within 2 taps you can have your bet on. We also tried to demystify, so we included some education videos, which we're leveraging from our TV network, FanDuel TV, and to try and help on that. Interestingly, a lot of that stuff doesn't resonate. It's the simplicity and actually getting a bet on. And like, for examples, like products from like ATG and their Harry Boy is a good example of like people are actually looking for that quick pick experience. And that's something I'll talk briefly about later. We've also invested beyond just the betting experience and placing a bet. There's some good stuff again shown from ATG, but what we have our own OTT product because we have our own network over here. But when you log in with FanDuel or TVG, and you place a bet on your phone, your bet slip appears on the right-hand side. So you can be watching the race, and you'll know what horses you have in this particular race, all the different bet types they have. And again, going back to, don't make people think, just tell them what they're going to win if this horse wins. So you can see all that information, and they don't have to go back to the phone to check it all out. So what were the results? We had, they were pretty good. So just to show in terms of our actives growth, and this is both TVG and FanDuel. Pre-COVID, we were hovering around, I really should memorize this, but I can't see it from so far away. I think it was about 250,000 going into pre-COVID. After COVID had kind of settled down and we saw a massive movement from retail, as probably many of you guys experienced as well, onto online. We settled down after the huge surge at about 400,000. And now, this year when we had the Kentucky Derby, our actives went up 120%. FanDuel Racing had more actives than TVG, which is the legacy business, because we made it simple. 3 taps and you could get a bet from the sportsbook. Didn't have to set up another account. You could share your wallet. And we're on track for hitting about 1 million racing customers this year. Someone was saying, like, how can we attract new customers to racing in the younger generation? And 50-year-old guys, which I'm almost under, or catching up on. But the answer is you spend billions of dollars in marketing, because that's what's happened with FanDuel. We've invested heavily, but with you guys and with our partners on the tote side of the business, we're putting racing inside where the marketplace is in the US. And happy to kind of discuss with you guys later on over a beer in terms of the complexities of that. And so finally, kind of some thoughts and some learnings about what's driving this new customer growth, apart from being in the right place. Effectively, racing is a fantastic product. It's great because it prevents opportunities for customers to bet. Traditionally, when we looked at TVG, we were all about, like, how do we get all our races in? How can people access the races specifically or get to the race pages quickly? Now we're looking in the next 6 months, and we'll see it coming up in the summer, we're going to try and evolve FanDuel Racing to present opportunities to people. So if you look in the Sportsbook homepage, it's presenting people winning opportunities, telling you how much you're going to win with different SGPs. And that's what we're going to try and target. Because what we're finding is the FanDuel Racing customer is actually quite content agnostic. I was chatting to Michelle earlier on, but we're growing the Australian B pools over here because the most popular time during NBA playoffs for horse racing was just when the NBA playoff game finished, which was 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night on the East Coast. Because those customers, they went on, they checked their sports bets, and what's available to them? Horse racing. And so they went on and they were growing those pools. One thing in terms of data, getting consistency is shouting out from those customers. They want to see things the same way, no matter whether it's Australia, Melbourne Racing Club, whether it's Solvala or Royal Ascot. They don't want to be like, oh, why can't I get this handicapping information? It needs to be consistent for them and a consistent way for them to engage. And really, we're just going to double down in terms of simplicity. You can see on the right-hand side some of the sort of what our design guys are looking at in terms of how we turn around a race page to provide people simple ways to bet. It was like, okay, you want to be a long shot player, you want to look for value. How do we leverage AI to look at what the live prices are at 3 minutes to post and tell you what actually a live long shot is? How do we help you build your exacta or trifecta? In fact, these customers don't really worry so much about doing an exacta and trifecta. They're more interested in, like, I've got $5 and I want to win 100. How can you help me do that? and also leveraging our on-air talent and other talent. And we'll be investing a lot more on the data and AI side to help drive consistent opportunities for customers to win. And the exciting thing from us, from a FanDuel perspective, when it comes to pari-mutuel, obviously, is we want our customers to win on this front. So we're investing quite heavily on that front. So that's kind of an update from FanDuel Racing. Hope you guys found it pretty interesting, and delighted to partner with most of you guys as well in getting this content out to the millions of sportsbook customers across America.
Great.
I'm sure lots of you will have a few questions or many questions for the panel, but we are approaching wrap-up time, which of course means the bar, as has been mentioned by the Irishman a few times. And so on that note, I think we will say goodbye and just invite Alex back up for any closing remarks. A couple of lines from Alex. Oh, here he is, yeah. Got a microphone on? Great, great. So that's it from us. Enjoy the drinks. Thank you for this. It's been a very enjoyable and informative afternoon from my point of view anyway. Alex, thanks.
Cheers. I've got an Irish wife, so I know all about standing between Irish people in the bar, particularly, what is it, 2 a.m. Irish time, so we'll keep it pretty short. Just a few thank yous, really. Vanessa, thank you enormously. I thought, fantastically done today, and I think your questioning was excellent. And Peter, the last time I saw you was knee-deep in Guinness and Tweed at Cheltenham, and I think you possibly made a bit more sense today. So, but I do agree massively. Your comments on the data element is crucial for the sport. Martin Perbick, thank you so much for making it. It wasn't. You've had quite an eventful journey over here, and I'm glad your research doesn't require you to jump out of planes. But it is pretty critical for us to make the case to regulators and governments, and I think we're a big victim sort of ordinarily of producing facts about our own countries. When you bring everything together so holistically, I think that's extremely powerful for governments. It's a pretty scary statistic when we're in the minority here in terms of legal entities. I dread to think how big this version of illegal get-togethers is, but anyway. I think tax is massively important. It's the key blocker to commingling. So the more we can work together with you on that in terms of understanding the tax landscape across the globe, I think that's a big one for us to be progressing on. Thanks particularly for those who have organised today, especially Florence and Harold, wherever you are. Thank you so much. Your enthusiasm for bringing countries together on a regular basis through WoTA is insatiable. As is your passion for the underlying sport. So thank you enormously. I'd just like to say a very quick thank you to Drew Fleming, who's helped Tallulah enormously with all the organisation with Florence and Harold. And what an incredible racecourse Santa Anita is. Seeing the graphics, bringing it up earlier on. As a mad racing fan, I'm super excited about the next couple of days. And also thank you so much for those people who have been organising events around this and around the Breeders' Cup, particularly Sam and Maddie from the UK's Department of Business and Trade. And the event last night I thought was excellent. You've done a huge amount for the sport already, and I hope we can work together with WoTA and link you into other peers within governments. I think there's plenty we can do there. But thanks to everyone for joining us. There's a gift at the end of this, which is a ticket for tomorrow and Saturday. So if you're, Harold, you'll be holding those around the corner. But thanks everyone for coming all this way. We've got people from Japan, India, Hong Kong, South America. It's a pretty remarkable get-together. So huge thank you to everybody. And I hope everyone's got a fair bit out of this. I must say, I thought there's some really good presentations, and I think one of the overriding sort of positives we see within totes or amongst totes is the sort of desire to share data and information and innovation. I think it's hugely inspiring, and the scalability of commingled pools across countries really is unlimited, and so with that WoTA will continue to grow. I think we're over 20 members already, so if there's anybody here who feels passionate about joining, we'd be delighted to have you. We've got new members joining this week, but it really is a very scalable entity, so the more the merrier. And within that, the next venue we're off to is Japan at the Asian Racing Conference. So that will be the next get-together of WoTA members, so that's not an incentive. I don't know what is. And the next WoTA Forum itself will be the following year in 2025. So with that, thank you everybody, and drinks are served. At the outside, drinks. Perfect. Cheers.